If you'd like to learn more about poetry, you can reach us at... Psych, we just kidding. Good night, y'all.
Well, all of us aren't. And welcome to
Hi everyone, welcome back to Hearts and Minds official YouTube channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Adarsh Pillai. I am a published poet and a freelance writer. Please make sure you comment down below after watching the video, share with your friends, don't forget to like. For more information on this or any other episode, go to our website heartsandminds1.press.com. Additional resources, more reading material, episode-led content, and a book if you're interested. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Robert Frost. Robert Frost was born in San Francisco, but his family moved to Lawrence, Massachusetts in 1884 following his father's death. The move was actually a return, for Frost's ancestors were originally New Englanders, and Frost became famous for his poetry's engagement with New England locals, identities, and themes. Frost graduated from Lawrence High School in 1892 as class poet. He also shared the honor of co-editorial with his wife to be Eleanor White. And 2 years later, the New York Independent accepted his poem entitled My Butterfly, launched his status as a professional poet with a check for $15. Frost's first book was published around the age of 40, but he would go on to win a record 4 Pulitzer Prizes and become the most famous poet of his time before his death at the age of 88. To celebrate his first publication, Frost had a book of 6 poems privately printed. 2 copies of Twilight were made, one for himself and one for his fiancée. Over the next 8 years, however, he succeeded in having only 13 more poems published. During this time, Frost sporadically attended Dartmouth and Harvard and earned a living teaching school and later working a farm in Derry, New Hampshire. But in 1912, discouraged by American magazines' constant rejection of his work, he took his family to England where he found more professional success. Continuing to write about New England, he had 2 books published, A Boy's Will, 1913, and North of Boston, 1914, which established his reputation so that his return to the United States in 1915 was as a celebrated literary figure. Holt put out an American edition of North of Boston in 1915, and periodicals that had once scorned his work now sought it. Frost's position in American letters was cemented with the publication of North of Boston, and in the years before his death, he came to be considered the unofficial poet laureate of the United States. On his 75th birthday, the US Senate passed a resolution in his honor which said, "His poems have helped to guide American thought and humor and wisdom, setting forth to our minds a reliable representation of ourselves and of all men." In 1955, the state of Vermont named a mountain after him in Ripton, the town of his legal residence, and at the presidential inauguration of John F. Kennedy in 1961, Frost was given the unprecedented honor of being asked to read a poem. Frost wrote a poem called Dedication for the occasion, but could not read it given the day's harsh sunlight. He insisted reciting the gift outright, which Kennedy had originally asked him to read, with the revised, more forward-looking last line. Though Frost allied himself with no literary school or movement, the Imaginists helped at the start to promote his American reputation. Poetry, a magazine of verse, published his work before others began to clamor for it. It also published a review by Ezra Pound of the British edition of A Boy's Will, which Pound said has the tang of the New Hampshire woods, and it has just utter sincerity. It is not post-Miltonic or post-Swinburnian or post-Kiplonian. This man has the good sense to speak naturally and to paint the thing as he sees it. Amy Lowell reviewed North of Boston in the New Republic, and she too sang Frost's praises. She writes in classic metrics in a way to set the teeth of all the poets of the older school on edge, and he writes in classic metrics and uses inversions and cliches whenever he pleases, those devices so abhorred by the newest generation. He goes his own way, regardless of anyone else's rules, and results is a book of unusual power and sincerity. In these first 2 volumes, Frost introduced not only his affection of New England themes and his unique blend of traditional meters and colloquialism, but also his use of dramatic monologues and dialogues. Mending Wall, the leading poem in North of Boston, describes the friendly argument between the speaker and his neighbor as they walk along their common wall replacing fallen stones. Their differing attitudes towards boundaries offer symbolic significance typical of the poems in his early collections. Frost's genre. Frost wanted to be different, but he also valued the use of traditional stanzas and metrical lines. He wrote various types of poetry, but he seemed to particularly like a quatrain with simple rhymes like ABAB and ABCB. He rarely wrote in free verse, but was known to write a lot in blank verse. Frost wrote short poems and long poems, some long enough to take up several pages in a book. Here are 5 poems of Mr. Frost that I'll be reading for you. The road not taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveller, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though, as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first one for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere, ages and ages hence, 2 roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. Leaves compared with flowers. A tree's leaves may be ever so good, and may its bark, so may its wood. But unless you put the right thing to its root, it never will show much flower or fruit. But I be one who does not care ever to have tree bloom or bear. Leaves for smooth and bark for rough, leaves and bark may be tree enough. Some giant trees have bloomed so small they might as well have none at all. Later in life, I have come on fern, now lichens are due to have their turn. I bade men tell me, which in brief, which is fairer, flower or leaf. They did not have the wit to say, leaves by night and flowers by day. Leaves and bark to lean against and hear in the dark. Petals I may have once pursued, leaves are all my darker mood. Flower gathering. I left you in the morning, and in the morning glow, you walked away beside me to make me sad to go. Do you know me in the gloaming, gaunt and dusty grey with mourning? Are you dumb because you know me not, or dumb because you know? All for me, and not a question for the faded flowers gay, that could take me from beside you for the ages of a day. They are yours, and be the measure of their worth, for you to treasure, the measure of the little while that I have been long away. Good hours. I had for my winter evening walk no one at all with whom to talk. But I had the cottages in a row up to their shining eyes in snow. And I thought I had the folk within, I had the sound of a violin, I had a glimpse through curtain laces of youthful forms and youthful faces. I had such company outward bound, I went till there were no cottages found. I turned and repent, but coming back I saw no window, but that was black. Over the snow my creaking feet disturbed the slumbering village street, like profanation by your leave at 10 o'clock on a winter eve, in a disused graveyard. The living come with grassy tread to read the gravestones on the hill. The graveyard draws the living still, but never any more the dead. The verses in it say and say, the ones who living come today to read the stones and go away, tomorrow dead will come to stay. So sure of death the marbles rhyme, you yet can't help marking all the time how no one dead will seem to come. What is it men are shrinking from? It would be easy to be clever and tell the stones men hate to die and have stopped dying now forever. I think they would believe the lie. And with that, we come to the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed what we took today. For full biography of Mr. Frost, an additional 25 poems created by myself, written by Mr. Frost, head over to heartsurvive1.press.com. Link to it in the description, all free of cost, of course. With each coming day, I hope bring out a new change in your life. The only thing consistent is inconsistency in the course of life. I wish you all the best. Remember tonight, signing off, Adarsh Veda.